I walked in, and what I saw destroyed me. Would you have stayed or run? I never thought I'd be here, sharing my life like this. But here I am. My name is Elena, and I'm 47 years old. Life has taken me through some winding roads, a divorce, a stubborn teenage son named Zephyr, and a career in nursing that wears me down, shift after shift. Every evening, I slip into my scrubs and disappear into the night, entering a world where pain, loss, and hope blend together under sterile lights and tired eyes. The job is demanding, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The long hours blur into each other, and the weight of what I see and feel during my shifts slowly begins to seep into every part of me. Outside of work, life feels mechanical. Wake up, work, home, sleep, repeat. But even in that monotony, I discovered something unexpected. A spark, a way to breathe again. That spark, bowling. I know it sounds simple, even mundane, something you'd associate with retired folks or lazy weekends. But for me, it became my little slice of joy. I joined a local league in Riverside a year ago, just to do something different. I never imagined I'd actually be good at it, good enough to make it to a real tournament in Springfield, 3 hours away. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Not just Zephyr's mom or a tired nurse. I felt alive. But just when I thought I could have this moment, reality came crashing back. Zephyr. Teenage boys are tough. He's been moody, distant, rebellious lately. The last time I left him alone, it didn't end well. A friend came over, and let's just say the garage still hasn't fully recovered. So this time, I made a different choice. I didn't want to miss the tournament, but I didn't want to neglect my son either. I booked us a weekend stay at a hotel near the venue, a compromise between chasing my passion and honoring my role as a mother. The hotel was cozy, with an indoor pool that offered a tiny vacation from our routines. That morning, as the sun peeked through the curtains, I gently nudged Zephyr awake. He resisted at first, curling deeper under the covers, but the mention of breakfast did the trick. Soon, we found ourselves at the buffet, the air thick with the smell of maple syrup and crispy bacon. Zephyr lit up when he saw the pancakes. He piled them high on his plate while I opted for an omelette. We didn't talk much, but in that silence there was peace. One of those rare, quiet moments where everything feels okay, even if just for a minute. After breakfast, I asked him if there was something he'd like to do before I headed off to the tournament. His eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. He told me about a nearby mall that had a specialty game store. There was a game he'd been dreaming of finding. His excitement was contagious. In that moment, I wasn't just a nurse or a tired mom. I was an adventurer with my son. We went to the mall, and as we walked through the crowded corridors, I watched him closely. He wasn't asking for much. He never did. Zephyr is thoughtful, quiet, and rarely demanding. Seeing him smile, even over something as small as a video game, was like catching sunlight in a bottle. Later that day, I made my way to the tournament. As I drove through the twisting roads to Springfield, something inside me stirred. Every curve on that road felt like a step back toward myself, a woman with dreams, not just duties. The tournament wasn't just a game, it was a declaration that I was still here, still fighting, still alive, and I played my heart out. That weekend reminded me that life is not just about sacrifice and repetition. It's about finding those pockets of joy that give us strength to keep going. A breakfast with your child, a quiet ride through the hills, a silly game, a bowling alley filled with strangers who become a cheering crowd. These moments are where we find ourselves. I never imagined I'd be brave enough to tell this story, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe you do. If you're stuck in a cycle, if you're exhausted, if you've forgotten who you are, know this: There's a version of you still waiting to be rediscovered. It might be through a passion you forgot about, or in the way your child looks at you when you least expect it. The road back to yourself might be winding, but it's there, and if you ever find yourself standing at the edge of something you want, go for it. Whether it's a bowling tournament or just pancakes at a hotel buffet, because sometimes joy lives in the smallest moments. The shopping centre in Riverside was buzzing with weekend life, laughter echoing from the food court, the rhythmic shuffle of shoes against polished tiles, and music from various stores blending into a kind of chaotic harmony. Zephyr moved ahead of me, eyes darting around with a quiet determination. I could tell he was trying to hide just how excited he was. We finally found the game store tucked between a trendy sneaker shop and a small bookstore. Zephyr paused for a second before walking in, like he was mentally preparing himself for either triumph or disappointment. I followed him inside, watching as he scanned the shelves like a treasure hunter. And then he froze. There it was. The game he'd been talking about for months, sitting there like it had been waiting just for him. He turned to me, eyebrows raised as if asking permission without actually saying the words. I smiled and nodded. It wasn't in the budget. But this moment, his face lighting up like that, it was priceless. As he cradled the game in his hands, I realized how little he truly asked for. A game, some pancakes, a little time with his mom. I often got so caught up in the weight of responsibilities, the stress of bills, the exhaustion of work, that I forgot how simple his world could be. He didn't need grand gestures, he just needed me to be present. We walked back to the car, and for a while there was a soft silence between us. The good kind. I dropped him off at the hotel, made sure he had everything he needed, and then headed to the bowling alley. The atmosphere there was electric. Neon lights, polished lanes, the steady sound of pins crashing down, and the murmur of focused players filled the space. I had barely gotten my shoes on before my name was called for the warm-up round. My heart pounded, not from nerves, but from a surge of anticipation. This was my moment. Frame after frame, I locked into the rhythm. The crowd disappeared. All I could hear was the sound of the ball rolling down the lane and the clean crash of pins toppling over. It wasn't just a game, it was a release, a way of telling the world and myself that I was still capable of passion, joy, and presence. When the final round ended, I didn't win first place, but I didn't care. I had reclaimed a part of myself. I walked out of that alley feeling lighter than I had in years. That night, back at the hotel, Zephyr was curled up in bed, the game box on the nightstand, and the faint glow of the TV flickering across his face. I sat beside him for a moment, brushing the hair from his forehead, and he looked at me with sleepy eyes. "You win, Mom?" I smiled. "In my own way, yeah, I did." He nodded, content with the answer, and drifted back to sleep. Weeks passed, and life gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Early mornings, long shifts, the occasional argument with Zephyr about curfews or forgotten chores. But something had shifted within me. The memory of that weekend lived on like a small lantern in my chest, glowing whenever things got tough. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, I found Zephyr waiting up for me. He had set out 2 mugs of hot chocolate and started a movie we used to watch when he was little. No big talk, just presence, togetherness. I realized then that these moments, are what life is really about. Not the accolades, not the perfect parenting, not even the cleanest house or the best grades. It's the connection, the quiet, steady love that survives our worst days and celebrates our best ones. So yes, I walked into a weekend expecting to compete in a game, but I walked out having rediscovered something far more important: myself. And if you ever find yourself at a crossroads, if you feel like you've lost who you were, remember this: Sometimes healing doesn't look like a grand breakthrough. Sometimes it looks like pancakes in the morning, a game at the mall, or a bowling lane that reminds you of who you used to be before life got so heavy. Hold on to those moments, because in the end, that's where we find our strength.